Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. APWSPORTS signing in. And if you guys know, I usually haven't done things that's college football related on this channel. I haven't probably did a college football video since the days of me reacting to Ohio State games back in 2019 and 2020. This particular subject in this particular video, I felt like, number one, I had to do to kind of explain some of the points that I've been going back and forth with on different social media platforms about the college football playoff and how things turned out for this 2023 season. And I just feel like I had to explain some things and debates of how the field turned out and why possibly could it turn out like this, and I personally think it should have been different. Now the field, I'm gonna just give you guys like this, is number one, it's that team up North Michigan. Number two, Washington. Number three, we have Texas, and four, we have Alabama. Now the first three teams all deserving to be there. Even Alabama is deserving to be there. But it is one particular issue that I have been debating on social media the last day or so, and that is the fact of Florida State being left out as a Power 5 conference undefeated over Alabama, who has one loss, be it against Texas, conference champion that ended up in the playoff. And as we look at the information now, Florida State is the only Power 5 conference team to go undefeated and not make the college football playoff in the college football playoff era. And that is troubling to me. A lot of people are going to say, why am I making this video? The things are going to change next year, which I'm glad it is. It's going to be a 12-team playoff next year. And I personally would have kept it at 8 because I think 12 is a little bit oversaturated with teams. And it seems like everybody is going to get in at this point. I would have made it 8. But that's just me personally. But either way, at the end of the day, I am glad that the field is expanding. I have some problems with Alabama being in over Florida State. It is not me being a hater because Ohio State isn't in, and you guys know I am an Ohio State fan, and they're not in, so I don't have an issue with that because Ohio State has had a quarterback problem all year, albeit not recorded in the transfer protocol. The transfer portal, but neither here nor there. I'll take it back to different arguments that people have been making for Alabama being in over Florida State. And one of the main arguments that I've seen is the way the national championship game played out last year with Georgia and TCU, and the committee not wanting to see something like that again, and it hurts the money and it hurts the bottom line and all that. Alabama is a brand, blah, blah, blah. Problem number one. A lot of people said TCU was in. Oh, the TCU shouldn't have been at TCU. You have a little bit of an argument with that because TCU was a one loss and they didn't even win their conference. But they made it in under some supreme weird circumstances with USC losing, and Ohio State made it in last year as a one-loss non-power conference 5 champion as well. And TCU played in their championship game, at least, and Ohio State didn't, but that's crazy, neither here nor there. But the problem I have with the TCU being in an argument is you guys have to remember, in order for the TCU to get to that national championship game, didn't they have to beat somebody? TCU ended up beating Michigan, a Big Ten conference champion Michigan, who was undefeated. TCU ended up beating them in the semifinal. So to say that TCU didn't deserve to be there, didn't deserve it, they proved it on the football field that they belong. They should have been there because they ended up winning a football game against a Power 5 school in the Big Ten, which most people's is the second best conference behind the SEC. They beat them as a Big 12 team in the playoff, and the game was not necessarily close either. So to think, oh, TCU shouldn't have been there, they beat Michigan to get to the college football playoff championship game. So to say that TCU didn't belong and that Florida State is a team with a quarterback injury, which is another point that I'm going to bring up, that they didn't belong because they didn't play against great competition because their conference is not very good. But at the end of the day, you cannot control what other teams do in your conference. You can only control what you do on the football field. And Florida State did nothing but win games. They did nothing but win games. They were undefeated, had a conference championship victory, undefeated, Power 5. Still did not make the college football playoff. Why? Because the SEC is the biggest, the best and biggest conference. The SEC is the big and bad. The better team in Alabama and Georgia and blah, blah, blah. I get it. SEC strong. But at the end of the day, you're in a Power 5. You cannot control what other teams do in your conference. You can only control what is in front of you on the football field. And Florida State handled business every single game on the football field, going 13-0. Alabama, one loss, and that one loss was not even in the strongest conference, as they say, in the SEC. Their loss came against a Big 12 team in Texas, and Texas ended up losing the game to Oklahoma. So just to say that all the SEC is big and bad and all this, granted, they are a good conference, but at the end of the day, Alabama still lost the game. They still lost a game, and Florida State didn't. Another point I want to go to is the quarterback injury situation. Jordan Travis being hurt, I think, is a big part of the reason why Florida State is not in the college football playoff. Now, I have some evidence to support that that's not a valid argument either. If you guys remember, the 2014 Ohio State Buckeyes, and yes, I remember that because I am a Buckeye fan, and I remember this vividly. They had pretty much the exact same situation happen to them in 2014 on their way to the college football playoff. Think about it. Jordan Travis, he was a Heisman candidate going into that Florida game, which he ended up breaking his leg. Another coincidence, I can say. J.T. Barrett of Ohio State was the Ohio State's quarterback in 2014. Number one, they already had lost Braxton Miller to an injury earlier before the season even started. And J.T. Barrett comes in during the year. He is a Heisman candidate. He goes down in the last regular season game, just like Jordan Travis did. He goes down against Michigan, and the backup quarterback, Cardale Jones, stepped in, won them the conference championship. The same thing Florida State did, won the conference championship. And then on top of that, Ohio State was a one-loss football team that year because earlier in the year, they lost to Virginia Tech. So, granted, it was an earlier loss, but anyway, undefeated Florida State, one loss, Ohio State. And the debate that year was Baylor and TCU from the Big 12 being the fourth team that was in the college football playoff. Who ended up getting the spot? Ohio State. Ohio State, while it was a dominant Big Ten championship game against Wisconsin, a 59-0 beatdown, Ohio State, with a backup quarterback and with a loss on their record, ended up in the college football playoff. Now, a lot of people were saying, oh, they didn't belong, it should have been Baylor or TCU. But Ohio State proved on the football field that they belong. You know why? Because Alabama, big, bad, almighty. Ohio State not only took Alabama down in the Sugar Bowl to get to the college football national championship game, but they ended up facing a team in Oregon who had beat previously undefeated Florida State. Oddly enough, there's some coincidences there. Florida State undefeated in the college football playoff at that time. Oregon, Heisman Trophy winner, and Marcus Mariota, and Ohio State took them down to win the national championship. So the committee at that point let the things play out on the football field. Something that Florida State does not get the opportunity to do because the committee left them out of the college football playoff for Alabama. I personally think that's just an SEC bias. I wish Georgia would have won that game so we wouldn't even have this conversation. For me personally, I'm not a big Bama fan anyway, but at the same token, I don't care who the undefeated Power 5 conference team was, I would be having the same discussion about the Power 5 conference team being in the college football playoff. another thing is Florida State didn't play a good schedule. Florida State, they played a bunch of weak players in that conference. If you guys also remember, the 2021 Cincinnati Bearcats were not even a Power 5 team. They were a Group of 5 team in the American Conference at the time. They made the playoff in 2021. They were undefeated. They weren't even in a Power 5 conference, and they still made the playoff. And I attributed that to wins over Notre Dame and wins over Houston. Now, a team like Florida State, they have a ranked win against LSU. They have a ranked win against Duke at the time, and they have a ranked win in the conference championship game against Louisville, a Louisville team that ended up beating Notre Dame this year. So when you're talking about, oh, the strength of schedule didn't work, albeit Alabama, yeah, they probably played some tough opponents, LSU, Ole Miss, Georgia, cool. But they still lost a football game. Florida State didn't, and they were conference championships. So how can a team like that not get in? And the College Football Playoff Committee is kind of all over the place because in 2017, you have to think about the UCF Knights, the Golden Knights of UCF. They were an undefeated Power 5, well, Group of 5 team that did not make the college football playoff. So it's weird that Cincinnati gets in 2021 going undefeated in a Group of 5 era, but UCF in 2017 didn't get in undefeated in a Group of 5. I'm not understanding the committee here. I'm not understanding the committee not letting FSU get in, but they let Ohio State get in 2014. They let Ohio State get in not playing in a conference game twice. Ohio State, Big Ten 2016, they didn't even make their championship game with the loss to Penn State. They still ended up making the college football playoff, albeit because they had a big win against Oklahoma. 2021, it was a lot that happened, but Ohio State was still a team that got in a football playoff were not even making a conference game, and they lost to Michigan. So some of the things the committee is doing, it doesn't even have a set precedent of why teams are not or aren't in the playoff. Florida State being a team that went 13-0 in a Power 5 conference, Power 5 ACC conference champions are not in the playoff, and a team with one loss that wasn't even in their conference, which is so big and bad. I'll give credit to Alabama for going undefeated in their conference, but when they stepped outside the conference, they lost to Texas. And it was not even that close of a football game because Texans, they pretty much had a good way with Alabama on that night. And Alabama lost to the Texas Longhorns at home. It wasn't like it was a neutral site thing or it was on the road. They lost at home to Texas. So when you're thinking about this committee, Florida State should be the team in over Alabama. I just wanted to make this video to kind of give my thoughts and kind of get my point of view out there. It is not me bashing Alabama. It's not me bashing them at all. I just think Florida State earned their opportunity despite the injury to Jordan Travis, despite them not playing the greatest of schedule. They can't control that. They should be a team undefeated in the Power 5 that should be in over a SEC team that lost outside of their conference to Texas. That's just my thoughts. But either way it goes, that's all I've got. APW Sports signing out. Make sure you guys stay safe. Have a great next one, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.